Welcome back to another episode of Believe in TCU presented by FanDuel. I'm Zion Trammell here with Seth Dowdle. Look, TCU football, they had the week off. They could watch their college football Saturday from their couch. And while the slate on the surface didn't look too enticing, we certainly saw a lot of season-altering outcomes and games that we just did not see being important that ended up being significantly important as it pertains to the Big 12 and just the college football world in general. But today we're going to talk about our Week 2 Big 12 takeaways and where TCU fits in this conference and taking a look at the rest of that schedule. Seth, I'm going to turn things over to you. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about some of the most impactful Big 12 games this past weekend.
Yeah, there were quite a few. I think, I called this Prove It Week for the Big 12 because week 1 was a mixed bag. You got Utah and TCU showed out, but then Baylor lost to Auburn, and I think there were two others. Oh, Colorado lost to Georgia Tech, and then Cincinnati lost to Nebraska. So definitely, but all those games were close, except for the Auburn-Baylor game, which kind of got away from at the end. But all those games were close. Cannot say the same about this week for the most part, because we'll start at the top with the most shocking one in terms of badness for the Big 12, because I'd say it was a mixed bag again in terms of results. We talked about this in an unreleased episode of Believe in TCU due to technical difficulties. We did talk about, I wanted to be known that we did talk about the potential of Mississippi State beating Arizona State.
We did, it doesn't sound like, it does sound like we're making this up, but we did record an episode on Friday. It just couldn't get uploaded because the audio was jacked up. But yes, we did talk about this being a possibility.
Yes, and we were frightened. And I thought that they were not doing enough to prepare for the Cowbells. And they didn't at first. In the first half, they went down 17-zip, and then they scored 20 unanswered. And then Blake Shapen, who's been ruining the Big 12 within it and outside of it for years now, threw an absolute dot to a wide open Mississippi State wide receiver to win the game 24-20. So Arizona State, probably not as good as they were last year, is the early indication. So that changes a lot of things about our perception about the Big 12. Another big result in the bad category, and I promise we'll get to some good results. Kansas State lost to Army, everybody. Kansas State lost to Army. Kansas State had 2 possessions in the second half on offense and ran 16 plays.
Goodness gracious.
Army had the ball. Army had the ball for 40 minutes in this football game.
Wow.
Here's the lesson, and I think I will make this TCU centric. If you go to Ireland and you lose, your season is going to be crap. 3 years ago, Nebraska went to Ireland and they ended up firing their head coach that season, and after they lost to Northwestern. Last year, Florida State went 2-10 after losing to Georgia Tech, and then this year, Kansas State lost Iowa State, and they've come back and they barely beat North Dakota, and then they lost to Army. TCU, I swear,
we better not lose.
You gotta beat North Carolina next year in Dublin.
Yeah. So if TCU beats North Carolina next year, is Bill Belichick gonna retire?
It might be terrible. It might be a terrible season.
It cannot happen. Not to mention Avery Johnson's dad and brother got into a fight after the game. After that point, I remember texting Seth, we were texting each other uh-oh, what's going on, K-State? Vibes are not good right now. And then last week, it really wasn't much better. They got a win, but how significant was it? And then losing to Army, Army just lost to Tarleton State. Yeah. That's not like an Army team that, last year they were kind of in the CFP conversation for a little bit. And then, they didn't, obviously, but they are not that great this year. And not only did they lose, but they got dominated in the second half, obviously, with time of possession.
I love it when Army pulls out the triple option and just holds the ball for the entire game. I love it so much. It's the most satisfying thing in the world because like that's how Army neutralizes you, right? They don't have better. I'm confident saying that Army does not have better players than Kansas State.
Yeah.
But they're like, you don't know how to defend this playbook, so like we're just gonna triple option you to death.
I was looking at the box. They ran the ball 70 times, and like no team does that normally. Obviously,
I love the service academies.
They threw the ball 12 times, but that is like Army football right there.
I love it so much.
Yeah. Vibes are bad for Kansas State. A couple others as well, right? I mean, there's some bad.
Yeah. Missouri lost. Missouri beat Kansas. I will say of all of the losses for the Big 12 this week, this is the most respectable of them. This is a rivalry 100%. Game. The score was 42-31. The game was a lot closer than that in terms of score. Missouri did outgain Kansas by like nearly 300 yards, but the score was close. Kansas had opportunities to win this game. They just didn't. And I think Missouri is going to be a pretty good football team this year. So like it's not. I'd say that's pretty respectable.
On the road, too.
On the road, in an environment that literally hates you. They had at halftime, I don't know if you saw, they had a field goal competition where, you come out and you kick a field goal. Well, instead of kicking the field goal, this guy who was an amputee, he had a prosthetic leg. He lifted up his shirt before kicking the ball, and it said FKU. And instead of kicking it through the uprights, he just kicked it toward the Kansas sideline.
That's awesome. Come on. That's a peak rivalry right there.
I know.
Goodness gracious.
So that's excusable. What's not excusable is West Virginia losing to Ohio.
Yeah, that's bad.
Now, we know West Virginia and Rich Rod have like openly said, like, this is going to be a rebuilding year. Like, openly have said that. But I don't know if losing to Ohio was like in the cards when that was announced, essentially. So,
yeah. Shout out Timothy Chalamet, Ohio, beating West Virginia there.
Shout out. Who's the Ohio? Parker Mendoza, is that his name? I'm totally blanking on what his name is. Parker Navarro.
Yeah. I only know him because of Timothy Chalamet.
Shout out to Ohio.
Game day.
Ohio plays Ohio State this week, so watch out.
Upset watch.
Watch out for that. But I'd say the rest of the results on par with what the Big 12 would have wanted, except for never mind. Oklahoma State lost 69-3 to Oregon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was bad. We were talking about that game, and I was like, I think the spread was like 36.5 or something.
It was big. It was a big spread.
And we're like, oh man, like, are they that bad? They gotta cover that, right? I didn't get to watch much football on Saturday, and I come home and I'm watching, like, I think the local news was on, and say Oregon defeats Oklahoma State 69-3, and I was like, what? Whoa! That is bad for Oklahoma State. The clock is ticking for Mike Gundy there.
Yeah, won't dwell on this game long. I do need to read Oklahoma State's drive chart for everyone, though.
Not good,
because I think it is important that we play this out. All right, ready? 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, field goal, 3 and out, 3 and out, end of half, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, pick six, 3 and out, 6 plays, end of game.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's bad, guys. That is not good. Goodness. Okay. Well,
the rest is positive. I'd say the rest is pretty good. The rest is pretty positive. Iowa State beat Iowa. That game automatically starts at 13-10. That's where the score starts, and then they play it from there. Iowa State wins on a walk-off field goal again.
They don't score a touchdown. They just kick the field goal. That's all.
I know we don't care about the Big Ten that much on this show, but Iowa's offense is once again. Last year it was improved. We're back, baby. It's bad again.
It's so bad again. It's not we're so back again. It's we're so bad again. I don't know.
Baylor SMU. This was like one of the most fun games to watch. Baylor looked dead. Like they were down by 2 touchdowns midway through the fourth quarter, and then and I know we're not supposed to say this, but Sawyer Robertson might be the best quarterback in the country. He has already thrown for like almost 900 yards through 2 games and 7 touchdowns. Threw for like 470 something against SMU. He is really good. And I don't know if that's an indication about whether or not SMU's defense might just be terrible. Baylor's defense, I know, is terrible, which I think is going to allow Baylor to just like it's going to allow Sawyer Robertson to like to throw the ball a lot, and therefore he's going to like have crazy numbers by the end of the season. Don't know if he can win the Heisman, but I think he can definitely get there. If he get to the ceremony if he plays like this the rest of the year.
He threw the ball 50 times, and I mean, he completed 34 of his passes. I mean, that's insane. And not to mention, you think, oh, well, Baylor didn't run the ball. No, Bryson Washington ran it 31 times for 115 yards. You want to talk about balance. That is balance. Yeah, Baylor's defense is definitely a red flag for sure. And that's, I think, something that Dave Aranda's they've got to clean up because, man, they probably have something pretty special on offense. You don't want to like make guarantees in week 2, but I think you can make this a pretty close one as Baylor's offense is very legit. And it did not look good for them at first. I thought SMU was going to cruise to a win here.
SMU scored on the first play of the game. And I was like, okay, well, we might be in for one here. But obviously Baylor hung in there. Kevin Jennings had an okay game. But, I mean, this game was weird. There was a play where Kevin Jennings literally got sacked by the ref. Like, I'm not even joking. Like,
it's just the CW things, man.
He tripped over the ref and then fell down, and they ruled him down.
That's crazy. I mean, that's what happens when you put a game on the CW. You're going to get craziness. A 48-45 final. Just a shame this wasn't on ABC or ESPN. But you know what, Seth? It's great. We got to watch Texas kick the crap out of San Jose State, so that's awesome. I'm glad we got that instead of
we got to see Arch. Arch doesn't have it right now, guys. Arch doesn't have it.
And I say this as like a former, like I grew up a Texas fan myself. You know, I still root for Texas. I know that sounds bad, but obviously TCU first. But like nobody cared to watch Texas and San Jose State. You could have actually given a really quality game on ABC, but then you put it on the CW. Anyways,
I did watch a big chunk of that San Jose State Texas game though for research purposes only.
Well, yeah, I mean it's there for you. You know that game should have been buried on like the SEC network or something. I don't know, but it's Texas.
No. So the rest of the results, I mean, like Cincinnati beat Bowling Green, Colorado beat Delaware, Houston beat Rice. Hey, Houston beat Rice. That's a big rivalry game for them. And Rice was wearing these sick like baby blue uniforms.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. UCF beat North Carolina A&T, Arizona beat Weber State, and then BYU beat Stanford. So I'd say definitely a mixed bag for sure. I mean, like, I think if you left this week, if Arizona State had just beat Mississippi State, I think you leave this week feeling fine about yourself.
100%.
But now that you don't have, like, that under your belt anymore, like, you don't have, like, it was supposed to be, like, Arizona State, Utah, K-State, Iowa State, like, leading the charge at the front of the pack. And right now it's, like, Iowa State's like, come on, guys. And Utah's like, come on, everybody. And everyone's like, oh. And TCU, like, obviously TCU just won a big game, but they didn't play this week, so no one's talking about it anymore. So, like,
it is definitely a concern if you're Brett Yormark in the Big 12 when two of your like supposedly marquee teams in the conference have already lost bad games, and we haven't even hit Big 12 play yet. Like, we're not even there yet. And do we start this week? Does Big 12 games?
Yeah, Houston and Colorado play on Friday. And Kansas State does play Arizona, but that is technically a non-conference game because that game was scheduled before Arizona joined the conference. So that is a non-conference game, I believe.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's a soft launch this week, but we're getting close. And it's crazy because TCU doesn't even play their first conference game for another, like, 3 weeks, which so.
Yeah, I mean, listen. how many games is Mississippi State going to win in the SEC this year? Maybe more than I thought, like maybe 1 or 2, given how they played against Arizona State, but not that many. And so, like, that's not a good look whenever your supposed favorite, right? Arizona State is the favorite to win the conference coming into the season. Mm-hmm. Wins or loses a game to one of the worst teams in the best league. Like, the narrative's already, I just said the narrative right there, right? That's what it is. So this is not a good look.
And another team, I mean, Baylor was really close to starting 0-2. Now, granted, they played significantly better teams than the schools and the teams we just mentioned. You know, you play Auburn and SMU. That's a pretty difficult start to this season. Auburn is, they were ranked in the AP poll this past week, and then SMU was, and the only reason they weren't is because Baylor won. So they had a tough start. I kind of give them some leeway there, but it's been a rough start for a conference that couldn't really afford to have a bad start. They needed to kind of prove some things this season. We could talk about all the other sports, whatever, but football is a significant one, and the Big 12 is falling behind. It feels like, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, that's the biggest takeaway I think that we've had. I think the second biggest one is, you remember last year, like the running joke was like every spread in the Big 12 is going to be like 3 or 4 points either direction, if not less. And like any team can beat anybody on any given Saturday. I do not think that is true this season. I think there are some legitimately bad teams in this conference. Like, I think Oklahoma State is really bad.
They suck.
I think West Virginia is really bad. And I think UCF might be really bad too. So like it's one of those things where it's still going to be a competitive league, I think, at the top and maybe even the middle too, but I think at the bottom it's going to be really, really bad.
It's not going to be good, and definitely brings up some concerns there, but
which is fine, by the way. There are bad teams in the Big Ten, and we don't complain about them. Purdue is in the Big Ten, and Purdue is going to like not win anything this year. Yeah. And no one complains about that. At the SEC, Kentucky is an SEC team. And Vandy, well, for years, Vandy was the laughing stock. But hey, Vandy's good. Vandy's good.
They're making a case. You know, Arkansas is probably not going to be super great this year.
No.
And, you know, obviously the ACC's got some – ACC is very top heavy. They've got they do have the powerhouses. You know, they do have Miami, Clemson, I guess. I don't know what they're going to do this year, but
Florida State.
They do. Yeah, Florida State's had a really good start, but their bad teams are like really. I mean, Stanford is not good at all. They may win 1 or 2 games this whole year. So every team has their bad. Every conference has their bad teams.
Especially when these conferences like are so bloated now, right? Like they have so many members, and this is just like, this just goes back to the whole thing of like, why do we do the conferences like this anymore? Like it's just, and I don't want to say it's Texas and OU's fault. Like, I mean, sure, they were the ones that started this whole, these whole shenanigans, but it was going to happen anyway. I think it was going to happen regardless of whether or not Texas or OU decided to do that. I think it would have been USC or UCLA that, maybe jump ship or whatever. Someone was going to start the dominoes from falling, and it just, it's unfortunate that kind of the Big 12 is still here. So like, therefore they have won some sort of battle. The Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore, at least in the form that it used to be. Right. So like, they're definitely the biggest losers out of all of this, and I think the Big 12 has done a decent job of, keeping itself alive by, adding the 8 schools that it has in the past 3 seasons or whatever. But it definitely lacks that contender in football. Now, basketball and baseball, well, basketball is certainly a different question. Basketball, I think it's a very good league, but in football, it definitely lacks that true contender because no one's spending right now to beat. No one's trying, except for Texas Tech, who is trying. But they've only been doing that for 1 off season. So we'll just have to see about that. But that's what happened in the Big 12 this past week. It was a mixed bag for sure. TCU didn't play, so they didn't die. TCU's still alive. We're all still. Remember when TCU beat North Carolina 2 weeks ago? Hey, okay.
They are doing just fine as of right now. So that's kind of where we're going to lean into our next little segment here, is talking about the remainder of TCU's schedule. Because I'm not going to lie, Seth, going into the year, I was like, oh man, this is a toughie. And we said this the year before, and then it ended up being pretty easy. And I'm not going to say that just yet, but based off the results this last weekend, I think this schedule for TCU looks a lot more favorable already. And it's becomes a conversation now where, look, we're only 1 week in, and the Big 12 championship game is a long ways away. A lot of things are going to happen between now and that game. But the way TCU looked in week 1, and if they can kind of continue that, I think the conversations could be had about, could TCU be competing for a Big 12 championship game? I think it's there if you take care of business the way they should, given how bad some of these teams have looked so far.
Yeah. TCU started this season with, let me count here, 1, 2, 3, 4 ranked opponents on their schedule, plus some pretty quality teams as well, like BYU. And we didn't know what we were going to see from UNC. Obviously, we now know. And Baylor, right? Now TCU only has one ranked opponent currently on their schedule, and that is Iowa State on November 8th. Everyone else is not ranked. Now, that is not to say that there are not challenging games. SMU is not going to be easy. I don't think traveling to Arizona State is going to be easy. And spare me that just because Kansas State looks like crap, I've seen TCU go into Manhattan and crap their pants time after time before, so that scares the crap out of me still. And going to Provo to play BYU is not going to be the easiest thing either. But you look at this and you're like, okay, you're right. Like, it's not as hard as we once thought. I mean, we can walk down the line here. SMU might be bad at defense. And we saw what TCU's offense looked like against a bad UNC defense. And you can be like, okay, we know what they can do. There's Arizona State. Sam Leavitt and that offense do not look cohesive at the moment.
Yeah, it feels like it's like just throw the ball to Jordan Tyson and let's hope for the best, just from what I looked at, like even just looking at the box score.
Yes. Then I have breaking Colorado news. I have breaking Colorado. This is hot off the press as of like this morning.
Okay.
Colorado plays Houston this week. And remember in our Big 12 quarterback preview, and even in our Big 12 previews, we talked about it's a 2 quarterback battle there at Colorado. It's Julian Lewis and Caden Salter. No. Starting this week at Colorado, third-string quarterback Ryan Staub.
Wow. Already making a quarterback change. Dang. That's pretty.
I haven't really read why. But I'm just, if that's who it's going to be, obviously we'll see a little. He played a little bit against Delaware and it was fine, but like, we'll just have to see what that's like. But still, even then, like the quarterback that you thought was going to be playing for Colorado might not be playing for Colorado when you play them.
That's crazy. That is wild. Breaking news right there. Wow.
Yeah, hot off the presses.
Did not see that coming. It's crazy.
And you just don't even know what Colorado's going to look like, right? I still have a lot of questions about them even after 2 games. So that's the first that's the next 4 games. And then Kansas State, we just talked about them a whole lot, about how that's been an abject disaster. Like they're fighting for bowl eligibility at this point, I think.
Probably.
Baylor, they're probably going to score a lot on TCU, but I think TCU could probably score a lot on them. So like it's that game's probably going to be like it was last year in Waco, where it just is a track meet. Yeah. And then going to West Virginia on the 25th. Now, obviously, West Virginia just lost to Ohio and is probably going to be bad, but playing in Morgantown is like not an easy thing to do. So you spare me that's going to be an easy. That could be pretty hard still.
It certainly could be. I mean, if you're at home, you feel a lot more confident about it for sure. But being on the road, it's challenging.
And Iowa State, obviously, that's going to be tough if they continue on their trajectory that they are right now. And then BYU, Houston, Cincinnati. I don't really know what that final stretch looks like. I really don't like going to BYU. I don't like that at all. That game's probably going to be at night at like 9:15 p.m. local. So remember what we had to do for Utah last year and stay up super duper late? Probably gonna have to do that again. It's probably gonna be cold too. It's in November. Like that's not gonna.
It's gonna be a late night for TCU fans then. But one observation I just kind of noticed there is, I've looked at that schedule a lot, but then realizing, well, hey, TCU doesn't play Texas Tech and they don't play Utah. Those are probably two teams that I would say belong in that like category of best teams in the Big 12. I put it as of right now, and again, it is very early to be talking about this stuff. I'd put it in like maybe 5 teams in there. I'd say like Iowa State, Utah, Texas Tech. I guess you could probably put TCU in there.
I'd put Baylor in there.
And then Baylor. Yeah. I think that's probably your 5 right now that you can confidently say, maybe not confidently, but you could say as of right now are probably the best teams.
Yeah, and BYU would be like right on the cusp for me of like just right there. I just need to see them play better teams. They've played Stanford and like a nobody. So I just need to see them play a good team to see how that team's actually going to be looking like.
Exactly. And I hope that Sonny Dykes, I hope this team saw what happened this last weekend and realized, hey, we've got a game with Abilene Christian this week. We should win this, but let's not mess around. Let's not, and we'll kind of save this talk a little bit later in the week as we'll do an Abilene Christian preview, but you don't want to mess around and see and find out what Abilene Christian's got. Put away this game early, and
it's a patented look ahead spot too because you got SMU coming next, so like you don't want to look ahead.
100%, and so that's kind of what's at stake there for TCU, and I think we've got a long ways to go, but given the way the Big 12 looked and what TCU has right now, and that's a veteran quarterback, a really good offense, both coordinators entering another year under that system. There's a lot of consistency with TCU, not a lot of moving parts. And I think that's why we talk so highly about them right now, because they have a lot of a lot of the ingredients for a team that could make a run here in this conference that is very wide open at the moment. And you're probably not going to get much better opportunities than this one. So TCU's got to take advantage of it and make a run.
You mentioned the continuity with the coaching staff and veteran quarterback play. That is an advantage this season because we've seen the teams that have like a newbie starter at quarterback and also a coaching staffs that have a little bit of turnover. They're winning, but like it's like more difficult or they're just straight up losing. So like it pays in this season of college football. We've had like the COVID guys for years now, but those are kind of the 24-year-old quarterbacks are no longer really a thing for the most part in college football, which is why so many teams had to finally be like, fine, we'll start a sophomore this year. TCU was lucky enough to have, a offensive coordinator who's here for year 3, a defensive coordinator who's here for year 2, a quarterback who started 2 seasons and change now, right, of being the full-time starter. It's a blessing for sure, and TCU shouldn't take it for granted, I think, this season, because there are some teams on their schedule like Colorado who's going through. They have a 3-quarterback system now, apparently. West Virginia has a brand new head coach. BYU has a brand new quarterback. Houston has a brand new quarterback. So it's like you just got to take advantage of your opportunities. We talked
Isn't
about
it?
this last year though too, with the easy schedule, and they didn't. So like we're just
Yeah, it's kind of these repeat conversations. Isn't it crazy though that it's taken like 5 years for us to finally move on from like the COVID players? I know, like, relatively speaking, if they come in during COVID, it's 4 years, but still, isn't it wild that we're just now finally moving off of
I mean,
that a
like
little bit with the.
freaking Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel started at Oregon like for 3 consecutive years, and they were 27 years old. Like Bo Nix left Oregon and was married and had a child.
It's insane. It's crazy. And I mean, I don't blame those players for wanting to use an extra year. If it's there and you feel fine, go for it. Take it. But now it feels like we're kind of getting that reset and a lot of younger quarterbacks. So it's nice to have a Josh Hoover here in Fort Worth that's been around, been in this system, and has a lot of game experience. So it's
I think that
it's
showed
it's
against
fun.
UNC too, right? Because I think
It
a lot
did.
of those North Carolina players came out there and had a deer in the headlights look almost when the goings got tough. But TCU, yeah, like Gio Lopez after that first drive, when TCU finally realized what they were doing, and it was just like, oh my, like they had no idea what was going on. That entire UNC team.
An adjustment was not made by UNC until they changed quarterbacks, but
No,
they like literally looked so lost out there. Like when the unscripted or when the scripted stuff went away, oh my gosh, it's like they had no idea what was coming at them.
weekly North Carolina update. I feel like we're gonna have to do that for the rest of the year. Weekly North Carolina update because we do. I want to be clear. We are laughing at UNC right now, but for TCU's sake, North Carolina needs to win the ACC. So
Go Tar Heels.
go Tar Heels, go Bill. They beat Charlotte 20-3 on Saturday. Gio Lopez did play and he did start for North Carolina. He threw for 155 yards and not much else.
Well, it'll be fun to see how UNC season plays out, but it's more importantly, I think, for TCU, it's about taking care of business. And that starts this Saturday. They will take on Abilene Christian at 7 o'clock. Game will be on ESPN Plus. TCU making their first home game of the season. Purple on purple should be fun.
Should be a lot of fun. We'll talk about it obviously later on in the week, but TCU should win this game, obviously. Although Abilene Christian, not the worst FCS team to ever exist. So
yeah, they are definitely not a team they can just look past. You know, it's
Aztecs
certainly
Tech.
Aztecs Tech. But we will talk about that game a little bit more later in the week. We'll have a TCU versus ACU preview, and then we'll talk about it next week. Which again, game will be played on Saturday at 7 o'clock. But that'll wrap things up here for this episode of Believe in TCU. It was fun, talking about the Big 12 this past week, and obviously there's no game for the Horned Frogs, so no recap there. But got to feel good if you're a TCU fan about the way things happened this past weekend. May not look good for the conference, but it certainly could look good for TCU, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. Is the Horned Frogs put themselves in the best opportunity to go out there and win the conference.
Listen, we were talking kind of about conference pride. It does not matter. It really does not matter, really, when it comes to TCU's perspective. Like, you want to see everyone else do bad because that means you might do good.
Exactly. So thank you all for tuning in to this episode. You can follow us on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube, or listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, all at Believe in TCU. Make sure to follow Seth and I on Twitter as well to get updates from there. But we'll see you guys coming up this week for the ACU preview. So for Seth Dowdle, I'm Zion Trammell. See you guys next time. And as always, go Frogs.